I am so glad to have you back for the Defined Engagement BookCast. My name is Doug Fine, your host. Today we're welcoming back Laura Sukorocoff. She is a multi-talented L&D professional, leadership expert, and she wrote the book, It's Not Them, It's You, Why Employees Break Up with Their Managers and What to Do About It. We'll be meeting Tom today, a protagonist in her book, and we're going to be learning about trust. Laura Sukorocoff, I am so grateful that you returned to the Defined Engagement BookCast. Thanks for being here. Hello, how are you guys today, my faithful guests and visitors to the Defined Engagement Podcast? I have here with me for the seventh trait of leadership, Laura Sukorocoff. She is the author of the book, It's Not Them, It's You. Meaning,
I'll do it.
Yeah. It's a book about when managers break people's heart and what they should do about it and stop breaking employees' hearts or managers' hearts. So it's a book about bad management practices that really affect people, that put their life kind of into a spin where it shouldn't. All of your stories are hugely preventable, and you give the medicine to help managers prevent acting bad. So it's a wonderful book. We are on the seventh person. You have a story about every person, and then you talk about a principle behind that story. And so today we're going to talk about a guy named Tom.
We are.
And we're going to talk about trust. So
yes,
trust is
exactly.
huge in a management sense. It's huge for a team. Trust is big. It's talked about a lot these days because there's been so little of it in certain eras of business. So Laura, welcome back to the Defined Engagement BookCast. And let's talk about Tom.
Hey, great. Thank you so much, Doug. And I'm really excited about talking about this topic of trust. This, as you mentioned, this is a huge thing. And in any kind of leadership training, of course, they refer to trust. And I believe it is because without trust, you cannot have an effectively operating organization. Your employees need to be able to trust in you, and you need to be able to trust in them.
Right.
So it really is, there's a reciprocity there.
Yes.
It is a two-way street, and you need to have it on both sides. Trust is also something that you earn. So as a manager, not only do you need to be giving trusting your people to do their best work, but you need to be trustworthy yourself. And so that's in this case study with Tom, we demonstrate a little bit of that, how not being trustworthy affects the employees. And then we also talk about, this concept of trust flowing both ways. So this is a really interesting topic. I'm excited to dive into it with you.
In the book also, just maybe a heads up, we may not get to it, but you talk about what if you're a leader and you have broken trust? How do you get it back?
Yeah.
So that's a very important, nobody's perfect. We're going to blow it sometimes. And so you actually help a manager kind of process through there, even if they lied to somebody. How do you remedy that with a person you lied to? So it's really, really practical. It's a practical book. It's not, we've already said it's not an academic book. It's a hands-on kind of book. It would be perfect in an L&D setting to help managers get better. And that's what you do for a living too, Laura. So let's talk about Tom. Tell me about Tom.
Sure. Tom's an interesting case for me. He's, again, a little bit different than some of the others in that he was an independent contractor. However, he started as a salaried employee. So this is really interesting. He started with the company, was very excited about the prospect of working with a learning and development company, being really kind of in the trenches of L&D, really working on that. And when he started with the company, his very first, even before he started his interview, he essentially saw the owner in action
Mm-hmm.
and thought, wow, this is an amazing person who can really teach me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that really jazzed him up about this.
Sure.
And one of the things we talked about before when we talked about promotion, that leadership trait, we talked about the importance of development to people in their work. So people want this sense of growing and moving forward, progressing in their work. And so he saw these opportunities to really, improve his own
Yes, he
work.
thought
And
it
so
was there for him.
exactly. So he was quite excited about going to work for this company and all that he could grow from with working in this company. And things went on quite well for a little while. He was working, he was able to dig in some of the stuff that he really, really enjoyed. And then one day I think it needs mentioning that he works for a very small company, or he worked rather for a very small company, and they paid their employees by check.
Okay.
So he's working along, everything's going okay, and then his paycheck bounces.
His paycheck. Did you hear that? This is a warning.
So for me, as a small business owner, I mean, that is a huge thing for me. Bouncing paychecks, that's kind of a bad thing.
Can you say it any better than that?
It's an absolute no. Don't bounce paychecks. But I think it's even worse when you do this with an employee. I know, right now I am self-employed and it's me only. I'm a solopreneur. But in the past, I have had businesses where I've had employees, and I always made sure to pay them first because of a couple of things. Firstly, it's the right thing to do. They did the work, they deserve the pay. But also because I did not ever want any kind of reputational risk out in the community. Because people talk. And so here his paycheck is bouncing. Well, to his credit, Tom went right back to the owner and he said, hey, this happened. And they apologized for the mistake. I'm so sorry. We will fix this up immediately. And they did. They gave him another paycheck, which went through just fine. And so he blithely carried on. It was in his mind, just a little error.
Yeah.
And things went well going forward. Until the next check bounced. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly.
I'll do bam one more time. Bam.
So, I mean, as outsiders looking in, it's easy for us to say, oh my God, just get out of there, right? But we need to know a little bit more about Tom.
Okay.
For one thing, he was really excited about this job and all that he would learn from it and the opportunities it would give him. The other thing is he really needed a job. He was struggling a bit financially. His wife was out of work and he really needed the work. And so the two things combined, this belief in the company and what he could achieve as well as needing the work, had him staying there. Okay. Right around the same time, when he went back to them about the second check bouncing, they had a conversation with him about how they were going to change him from being a salaried employee to an independent contractor. Well, that unsettled him a little bit, but he thought again, okay, I need the money. But then what happened is the relationship changes, right? And the responsibility for work delivery changes and for work quality changes. And it seemed to Tom like what was happening going forward is a lot of questioning of his work, I guess kind of as an excuse for not having to pay him or to delay payment for the work that he did. And so their trust was absolutely being eroded there. And I think we need to understand as business owners, as managers, as leaders within an organization, that when you shake the security of people, in Tom's case, it is financial security, but security it has other factors as well. Like right now, we have companies that are really tenuous about whether they will be able to keep their staff on. Again, with the pandemic, business is shaky. Business is tough tough right now. And some of our sectors, like hospitality sectors, are really struggling. And this affects the very bedrock of employees' needs. If you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which so many people have heard of, I'm sure, these basic foundational life needs are being affected. And in Tom's case, this certainly was true. But also some of the other needs started being shaken. He no longer trusted in this company. So that's a huge break of contract there, break of trust with not paying.
Psychological contract, typically, like you said in your book, you said there's usually some sort of, we call them letters of understanding or hiring letter or whatever. But you have things in writing. You're going to be paid every 2 weeks or whatever, and you're going to get this, and we're going to have an employment relationship with you. And there's 2 strikes there, plus the changing the pay structure. Kind of they've changed the status of his employment. So I have to think, shame on me, that it might be easier not to pay him if he's an independent contractor, because they need to cut a special check and it's not wrapped up in taxes and payroll tax, all that stuff. So I wonder if he lost benefits then too.
Well, being a small company, I honestly don't know how many benefits they had.
I don't want to get
to start with. So that's taking us down a path that I'm not aware of, but I'm sure he would have done because he became an independent contractor.
Yeah.
So the other thing that happened right around that time, again, there's this lack of trust here. In my book, I tell the story about how Tom and his wife were out on a Sunday. I believe it was Saturday or Sunday. It was definitely a weekend. And they were out on a drive, beautiful day. They were just enjoying a drive through the countryside and just spending some time together. And he got a phone call from his boss saying that he had to get into the office immediately and fix all these things that he had done incorrectly for a client, and that this wasn't good enough, that the client was dissatisfied, really unhappy, and he had to go in immediately on his day off and fix it. He was quite confused about this because when he had spoken to the client on the Friday before, everything was fine. The client seemed really happy. So what happened? Where did it go badly? So sure enough, he, went in, did the work, fixed what his boss said needed to be fixed. But he had this kind of like, what's going on thing. And of course, on the Monday following, he checked in with the client who said, no, I was fine. I didn't complain about anything. In fact, I don't know why you made the changes.
Wow.
And so right there, boom. Trust erosion, right? In other words, he'd caught his boss in a lie. And
what purpose? I wonder.
Why? Well, that's it. Why lie about this? Like what? So the only thing I can think of is that this is a power play. And that's certainly how Tom felt, that this was a power play. I'm going to put you in your place. And
that never happens in business, people. It just doesn't. So this is just a rarity.
And the more under the thumb you keep people, the more they will chafe at this, the more they will push against it, and the less they will trust you.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's what happened here. Well and true. I mean, of course, Tom had to go looking for another job because he couldn't trust that he was going to get paid. But he also didn't trust the way that this company did business. He didn't trust that he was going to get the growth opportunities that he sought. He wasn't able to trust his manager with dealing with him fairly and, considerately.
Can I remind you of another thing that happened to Tom?
Sure.
He got it's a little company, yes, but he got the corporate shuffle too.
Yeah, he did.
He got hired on as a trainer, and boss lady said, I'm going to make you a project manager. And Tom being the good soul, needs a job, said, okay, great. I'll be what you want me to be, but I really need some help. I need some training. I need some development. This area is not my, you know what? It's not my strong suit.
You can say it. It's not
important. You say it.
It is fort, okay? It's not forte. Look it up in the dictionary. It's fort.
It's not his fort. So, but she never followed through. She never gave him any consideration, which was last talk, about his skills, and he needed help to be a project manager. So that's another thing that he would have. I think he believed fundamentally, I can trust these people. They're giving me a different role, and I'll do it. But help me out here, and that never showed up for him.
Yeah, and in this particular case, it was really reasonable for Tom to ask for PM training, project manager training, because the person he was asking this of was a project manager herself. She had pure PMP and trained project management. As part of their, that was part of their catalog.
Wow.
And so it was reasonable, absolutely reasonable for him to ask for this, and well within the power of the owner to deliver at really no extra cost. Just the cost of time. So
you know what I'm going to add to this is that, speculating here, but he's a trainer, and trainers are typically not necessarily the most Gantt charts or project manager kind of person that keeps things on track. I'm stereotyping myself, but really there's two different there's definitely two different skill sets. And I'd have to say that oftentimes trainers love it in their world, helping people and developing them. But when you get to a job that's more like, make it happen, how far along, it's just a different skill set. So I'm wondering, anyway, that might have been tough for him. He needed training if he was going to be a project manager.
So he needed the training. It was within the power of the owner to provide the training, but it was never provided. Now, from a business perspective, it's quite often that people request training, that they would really love to have development opportunities in certain areas, but the company just cannot make that happen. They can't afford to bring in trainers, or they don't see it as a fit for their business, right? So that happens. And sometimes managers need to have that discussion with their people that, great, I love the enthusiasm, but it's just not going to be able to work out for budgetary reasons, for fit reasons, for what have you. But the conversation should still be had. The point is that it should not be ignored. And that's what happened here. Tom was told that he would have opportunity to learn and grow and develop, but he was not provided those opportunities. So again, he stopped believing in it. He stopped trusting them at their word.
He was lied to.
He was lied to.
Intentionally or not, but ultimately you can take away after time that it was a lie. It wasn't true. So, hey, I want to, this whole thing with Tom and trust, I saw something in the book when I was reading it, and it again made me like gush that I've got like a super expert on my hands here in management and in organizational life. So I want to, I'm stroking you a little bit, but this is a great part of your book, and I want our listeners, of course, to go out and get this book, but I want them to see how much you know your stuff. I actually put you captured reality in your book, in this chapter on trust. So here's what I'm going to read. It's a couple paragraphs, but it's worth our time. When managers don't trust their employees, there is an effect on the results achieved. When trust is high, people tend to rise to the occasion, being more productive, communicating better, collaborating more effectively, and being all around more engaged in their work. They are willing to take risks and are, as a result, more creative. This can lead to extraordinary insights, collaboration, and innovation. So when trust is high, you get all that benefit. You've built, as a manager or as a company, you've built trust. It's a trusting environment, and the payoff is magnificent. It's like you said in our last discussion, people may be dreaming up things to do to help the company in ways you never would have dreamt yourself. So that's the payoff of being trustworthy.
Yep.
Exchanging trust between companies, management, and employees. Now, here's the downside when trust is low.
Mm-hmm.
When trust is low, the opposite occurs. Employees play it safe because they're afraid of failing and incurring the wrath of their bosses. Productivity is reduced and time to task completion is increased because employees are constantly checking and double checking everything before presenting a finished product. When trust is low, creativity is decreased. Who wants to try to innovate in a risky environment? It's much better to take the safest route. So I think you capture reality. You see how in the micro, the benefits of something, the benefits of trust. Your stuff. You capture reality, and I just want to stroke you for that because that's like profound. It's profound.
Yeah, it's as managers, as leaders, and as executives of organizations, we want our people to innovate and collaborate and ideate and all this stuff. Yeah, we this is what when we envision a really successful culture, this is the kind of thing that we envision. But if we are clamping down so hard, if we're micromanaging, if we are creating environments of low to no trust, we really are putting a big old wet blanket on all this innovation. We are stifling it.
You're not going to get
it. It's exactly as you read. If you are in a low trust environment, you are going to play it safe. You're going to do what you always have done because you know it works and you haven't been punished for that before. You're not going to want to take risks. And, let me share, if you don't mind, a story. I do have it in the book, but I want to talk a little bit about something that happened to me. I started with the company and my boss was an incredible micromanager. She checked and doubled and triple checked everything that I did, to the point where she even would not allow me to send out an email without her reading it first. So I would write an email and I would have to send it to her. And right, warning bells, exactly. There's a little alarm going off there. I would have to send her the email. Then I would have to wait for her approval before I could send that email to the intended audience. So if she was sitting at her desk and did this immediately, then it wasn't a big delay. But if she was busy on something in a meeting or away or what have you, sometimes I would wait hours, even, a whole day before getting a response back from her. And that would just push me behind on what I was doing. So there is a lack of proactivity on my part. There was also a real slowing down of the work that I could do. So I'm hired, from an employee perspective, I've been hired because of a set of talent, skills, abilities, for knowledge that I've gained, for experience that I've had, for my ability to do the job. And I am not trusted to be able to do the job. So immediately that communication was sent. I am not trusted. And within the first month, I went to my coworker and I said, what the, did she do this to you? And how long did it last for? And I then said, look, I can't deal with this anymore. I'm going to have to address it. Now that's my nature. I will address it. I don't know. I guess some people might call it the confidence, but honestly, I call it the impatience to deal with this stuff. I don't see why I would work for, a long time in an environment that I'm really unhappy in, when I could just address it and see if I can fix it. Right.
I love that, Laura.
Right. Well, that's me. So I went to my boss and said, what is going on? Like, why is this happening? And to her credit, she just went, oh, she really didn't realize the impact. She really didn't understand how little trust I felt and how it was stifling me. And what she said after talking to me and meeting with me, she said, you know what? I don't know. I don't know why I'm doing this. This has been a practice that I've done with all my new hires. And you just go, I trust you. And to, as I said, to her credit, she said that. So I ended up staying with that company for quite a while, and I loved the work that I did with her.
Yes.
She's a great manager after that point. But I did have to tell her to back off or I was going to quit. Now, as I said before, that's me. That's the way I am. And I have learned that I'm unusual. Most people would sit and stew.
Or leave.
Or they would quit.
Yeah. Or they sit and stew. Or, quit on the job, right? Like that's kind of what sitting and stewing means, but quit on the job. It's like, I'll just wait for the next thing she tells me to do and how to do it. I'll just wait. We talked about that a little bit in a couple of episodes, but so you were somewhat different than, and especially a new employee to go, but that just shows your integrity. It's like, I'm not going to mess around. Life's too short. Like I can't work this way. And
I mean, that's me.
Yes. But it's also, here's what I'd say. You're also a leadership development type person. So you probably knew micromanagers. It's just, it just doesn't work. Please don't. You've been telling people for years, please don't micromanage your people. So you couldn't bear it. So
well, exactly. I couldn't bear it, but a lot of people do bear it. And so that's the message that managers need to have. When you behave in that way, just understand that your people are hesitant to put themselves forward at all. Okay. B, they are looking for another job.
Yeah.
Or if they're not, they're sure as heck complaining about their work, which leads to stress, burnout, all that sort of stuff. And they do not trust you because you show no trust in them. And, with companies, oh my goodness, trust is such an important thing with companies right from the get-go. We interview people, we court them, we're so excited about them coming on board. We offer all these things to them in interviews and we like, yay, you're coming to work for us. And then we slap them with a contract and then we slap them with a 90-day probation period. We immediately cover our butts against risk from this new employee.
Right.
So we immediately break trust.
Yeah.
We don't trust them. And then they're wondering how they can trust us. And then if we have a shaky onboarding experience, there's just that more reason to not trust. Like, what the heck kind of company did I come to work for?
Yeah.
And all of these things delay us. And, there's a real business cost to not trusting and not being trustworthy.
Yeah.
Real hard numbers.
Yes. Oh, hard numbers. You can find them. They're not hard.
Yeah.
They're not hard to find. I want to share with you. I've developed just kind of I really admire this young guy out in San Francisco. His name's Shane Metcalf. He's the chief culture officer of 15Five. And that's a performance management platform. It's definitely right up your line in having regular, meaningful one-on-one conversations. That's what I think 15Five means. Like, do it 15 times. I don't know, 5 minutes is all you need sometimes, But when we had a chat online like this, he told me that his company, the culture of his company is they trust people from day one. They give them all the trust that they can. They try not to even have a thought about that we can't trust this person, so that we got to double check and this and that. It seems like they just go. We hired you. We vetted you. We know who you are because we had a good process. We onboarded you. You know how we work here. Go forth and do great things. Trust from day one.
Yeah.
And it kind of go from an HR perspective. It's like, it blows my mind because, like you said brilliantly, we we make people sign all kinds of papers that we can fire you on day 3 if we want for no reason or any
No
reason.
cause.
You
Yep.
know, and everything else that you do to indicate people, you believe people are untrustworthy, and we can make excuses into Kingdom Come about this this perception of all this legal stuff on the front end of employment, but it really gets in the way of people, bringing themselves and their great work to their companies.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I wanted to say about Tom, and it goes back to Management 101, in the scenario that you wrote the story, this person berated Tom publicly.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing that he had to experience, besides not being able to trust them. That erodes trust too. When you damage somebody's self-esteem, and we know that you don't correct people publicly. You just don't. It's Management 101, and he got berated in public. So that just, again, he's in a bad scene. He's in a bad scenario. And anything else you kind of want to say about trust before we close?
I do, actually. So firstly, with regard to what you just said, we can tell anybody reading this case study about Tom, anybody reading this story would immediately say, get out. Like, you should be gone.
Yeah.
But there are all kinds of factors why people stay in jobs, oftentimes much longer than they should. And, those factors might be fear, of what's out there. Will I ever find anything better? The next thing might be worse. So, in other words, this is the devil, so you stay there. It could be that you really enjoy your coworkers, or the commute is perfect for you, or whatever. There are so many reasons why people work at certain jobs in certain geographic locales. So we can't just automatically say he should have gone. Now, in his case, we got to the point where he was owed so much money that he didn't feel he could afford to walk away.
Oh my.
So that's interesting. I mean, for me, okay, right off the bat, I say, well, what's a manager to do about this? Well, for one thing, you pay your people. Okay. If they're working for you, you pay them. And if you can't pay employees, then perhaps you shouldn't have employees. Okay. Maybe you should be doing the work yourself until you get to a point where you can. Right. Okay. So that's kind of a no-brainer. But I think, if you find yourself behaving badly, if we take the scenario that you talked about, you've publicly berated somebody. Well, you shouldn't do that in the first place. But sometimes in the heat of the moment, things happen and we behave badly and we break trust.
Yes.
And then we just kind of hide away and hope that this will all blow over. In other words, we don't know how to regain faith. And so I do want to talk a little bit about what happens if you do mess up as a manager. If you do break trust, can you rebuild it? And I'm going to say, yes, you can, but it's going to take some work on your part. So you as the manager, if you've broken trust, my advice would be try to fix it, okay? Because people talk, stuff happens, and it's not just going to go quietly, okay? There will be bumps in the road. There will be hard costs to breaking trust. So try to rebuild the trust. Firstly, if trust is broken because you lied, then you need to admit to this. That's the very first thing you need to do. You need to say, I was wrong. I made a mistake. What I told you wasn't true. And then you need to come forward with the truth. Okay? Lying and then adding on to the lie is not going to fix anything. You need to come forward with the truth. And along with that, you must have a sincere and humble apology. It's amazing how a sincere apology brings people back. It's amazing because what you are doing with a sincere apology is you're being vulnerable. You're bringing your whole self into the conversation. And that's what people need. So if you've rebuilt trust because of lying, admit to the lie, tell the truth, and do sincere apology. Okay? Remember also that there are lies of omission. So if you
Mm.
are leaving out strategic facts or important details, admit to that too. Okay, own up to it. Again, just get that trust back by admitting that you have done this. And same thing with failure.
Mm-hmm.
Managers often feel so much like they have to be in control all the time. Like they
Perfect.
have to be right all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that if they are not right, that or not perceived to be right, then that will be a loss of power. But in fact, the reverse is true. If you failed, if you've done something wrong, then admit it and ask for help with fixing it.
Right.
It's this sincerity, this vulnerability that makes people tolerate it. People are very tolerant when mistakes are made.
Yeah,
Very tolerant.
I have a personal story from way back. It was my first, I spent 10 years in the Navy, got out, got a good job, working in human resources, and worked for a woman for a number of years. She was a mentor. She was a really good example for progressive HR. And she told me something in confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And it had to do with a mutual person that was in our chain of command. I don't even remember exactly what it was, but it was juicy. It was a juicy thing organizationally. And I told somebody, outside the room, I went and told somebody, and it got back to her that I did. What was I thinking? I think, and thinking it through, it's like, it was juicy. It was a very political organization, and I knew something, and I kind of wanted to, in looking back, I think I kind of wanted to show that I knew something, that I was told something privileged.
Sure. Knowledge is power, right?
Yeah. So I blew it, and she called me, I think it was our next meeting. She said something, I heard what you said, and I just like, oh man, busted, just busted. Yes, I did. And I don't think I explained my motive there, but yes, I did. And I'm so sorry, and it'll never happen again. It just won't. I got to tell you, but it's hard to tell somebody that you've betrayed that it'll never happen again.
Yeah.
They have to trust you at that point that you're telling the truth. So that's a true story. I mean, I wish I never would have done it, but it really was a lesson to me.
Yeah. Of course.
She gave me mercy, she forgave me, and we went on to work well together until we parted ways, So so I appreciate what you're saying about this trust. I don't know. She probably had to wonder. I was a director level, she had to probably wonder what else is this guy saying,
Yeah.
So anyway, it happens.
Yeah. So if you think about the ramifications of that, had you not come forward with this sincere apology, you at that level might have been left out of all these kind of conversations that you needed to be part of, to be able to do your job well, to be able to execute. So when I talk about the real hard costs of lack of trust, this is the kind of thing I'm saying. If you're not trusted to hold this information, and you are left out of those conversations, imagine the trickle-down impact it has on the speed of delivery of your work, right? So that's a huge cost to an organization right there. And that is, by the way, a measurable cost. A lot of these soft skills things that we talk about, so-called soft skills, I like to think of them as a lot more important than soft and fluffy. But anyway, so many of these are tough to measure. But trust is something that you can measure because it impacts your speed and your quality, right? So
I have to think that there are so many games that get played in an organization with low trust.
Yeah.
So many games that if it's low trust, people are maneuvering. They can't trust each other, so they can't be honest with each other, and blah blah blah. What happens? It can't be sustained. A low trust organization can't be sustained.
Exactly. So if you want to be the type of manager that people want to work for, if you want to have the type of organization that people that want to work in, that is respected by the community and by the customers, trust is a huge factor.
Yeah. And that's T out of the word respect. And I think next time we meet, we're gonna kind of wrap it up.
Wrap it all up.
How bad this works. Okay, but it does say, here you go, Laura. Tell us what it is again.
It's not them, it's you. Why employees break up with their managers and what to do about it.
Fantastic.
And there's I think my name is already there on the Zoom bar, but there it is right there.
Laura Sukorocoff is her.
That's it. Yep.
She's a wonderful author, a wonderful professional, and I'm enjoying this so much. So next time we meet, we're going to wrap it up with the kind of the guiding. You call it a guiding principle or a guiding?
Yeah, the overarching theme of the book. But I think it is a guiding principle. It's a great way to say it.
Yeah, overarching theme of the book, which is respect.
That's right.
And we're going to touch base on that and kind of wrap it up. So, Laura, as always, it's just been so rich and so good. And I look forward to our last. I don't look forward to our last meeting.
Yeah, me neither.
I'm waiting for your next book, because then we can. We can do the same thing with your next book. So get on it, will you?
Oh yeah, sure. No pressure. Okay.
All right, no pressure. Thank you again, Laura, and we'll see you next time. Okay, on the Defined Engagement Bookcast. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow, isn't Laura great? And I get to have her back for the final episode of the Defined Engagement Bookcast with her. We're going to talk with her next time about the overarching theme of her book, and then we're going to wrap it up together. If you'd like to find more bookcasts of mine, go to www.anchor.fm/Doug-Fine. And here is my professional website, Defined Performance Solutions, www.DougJFine.com. Thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next time on the Defined Engagement Bookcast. Bye-bye for now.